With less than a week ago before a major election in Israel, we're spelling out its significance today on CNN 10. I'm Carl Azuz. It's great to see you this Wednesday. Israel is America's closest ally in the Middle East. Its Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, was first elected to the job in 1996. He's served on and off and on again since then. And if this year's vote goes his way again, he'll become Israel's longest-serving prime minister ever. But he's facing a number of difficult challenges this time around. One of them is that the nation's attorney general says he plans to charge Prime Minister Netanyahu with corruption. The Israeli leader denies doing anything wrong and calls the investigation a politically motivated witch hunt. In fact, he's made it a major campaign issue. His main opponent in the election, former military chief of staff Benny Gantz, calls it ridiculous that an Israeli prime minister could serve while being charged with a crime. But if either one of these men is to serve after the election, he'll need to have the support of Israel's Knesset, its parliament. There are 120 seats in the Knesset, and the prime minister needs a majority, at least 61 of those seats, on his side. That's not always easy to put together. Unlike the U.S. Congress, which is dominated by Democrats and Republicans, there are more than 40 political parties running for Israel's Knesset. Most of those won't actually make it in, but analysts say 10 to 14 different parties will, and the biggest one's likely to have around 30 seats. So what the prime minister has to do to have 61 or more of those seats on his side is get several of these different parties to work together. That coalition building process can take weeks, but once it's all worked out after the April 9th election, the governing resumes. Next today, people in Venezuela need health care, medicines, water, electricity, education, and access to food. That's what an internal United Nations draft report says about conditions in the South American country. Around 32 million people used to live there, but several million have fled in recent years as the economy crumbled and political instability followed. The UN says it's trying to work with Venezuela's government to get help to its people, but the government says there is no crisis and it's blocked or restricted aid deliveries.
The alarming UN draft report says that up to 94% of Venezuelans are living in poverty. 94% for a country that has arguably the largest oil reserves on the planet. The report also says that almost 2 million people are expected to leave this country just this year because of the ongoing crisis. Across Venezuela, there are still blackouts and also water shortages. We saw people here in Caracas on the mountainside collecting water for their daily needs. This is how one person saw the situation.
Us Venezuelans, we're very upset. Listen, brother, we don't have power, we don't have water, services work badly. I don't even know how to explain. If it was for me, we would have forced this government out. 5 people come forward, they get killed, and nothing is achieved.
Schools have been closed and workers have been told to go home early. Here in the capital, the subway system isn't working and people are having to cram on buses just to get to and from work. The president of the country, embattled Nicolas Maduro, is standing by the promises to bring back the power and says schools will open next week. In a live television broadcast with cabinet members and other government officials, he blamed the power outages on a terrorist attack, something he's done before, even though experts say the main issue has been investment and allegations of corruption against the regime. Despite anger on the street, the regime is trying to maintain its grip on power. The loyalist Supreme Court saying that they want the opposition leader Juan Guaido's immunity to be stripped from him, and so that they can move with potential allegations and even arrest in the coming days. Guaido is calling for intervention from countries around the region and across the globe, but at this stage, Maduro isn't going anywhere. David McKenzie, CNN, Caracas, Venezuela.
10-second trivia. First-generation mobile networks, also known as 1G, were introduced in what decade? 1970s, 1980s, 1990s, or 2000s? It was in the late 1970s that 1G cellular networks made their debut in Japan. And now, 4 decades later, we're at the dawn of 5G technology, with rollouts in the U.S. expected this year. Download and upload speeds are said to be much faster than 4G, and the wireless industry says 5G will transform everything from education to medicine. What about farming? Tests going on right now in the United Kingdom suggest 5G could dramatically change that industry. But there are a number of challenges. One, 5G would have to be installed in rural areas where there are fewer users. In some places, even 4G coverage is spotty. Will companies be willing to install the additional cell towers that are needed where there aren't as many people to use them? Two, security is a concern. What could happen if a key part of the food supply is disrupted by domestic or foreign hackers? Three, what about costs? The system you're about to hear of is partly funded by the UK's government. Will farmers in other places also get help, or would they have to spend their own money on this? So this look at 5G farming assumes everything goes as proponents hope it will.
This is a connected cow. She and the rest of her herd sport collars with 5G connectivity, which provide real-time data about feeding patterns, health, and behaviour. Data like this could help address a looming problem: how to feed the world's population as it grows. By 2050, there'll be more than 9 billion people on the planet, and they all need to eat. That means farmers will need to produce 70% more food. And that's where tech comes in. The Industrial Revolution paved the way for modern farming techniques. So, on average by 1960, one farmer in the US could feed 26 people. Today, it's 155. But by 2050, each farmer will need to feed more than 265 people on the same amount of land. So farmers will have to do more with less. The UK is one country leading the way in smart farming innovation. 5G solutions are being tested across the country as part of the government-led 5G Rural First initiative. In the English county of Shropshire, the Hands-Free Hectare project achieved a world first in 2017 by successfully planting, tending and harvesting a crop without a single human stepping foot on the field. Autonomous tractors sowed the seeds. Drones with a range of sensors monitored the crops, and samples were taken remotely, providing data for targeted fertilisers and pesticides, while a driverless combine harvested the produce. 5G is now being used to increase the capability, precision and efficiency of the system. And what about those connected cows? They're part of a trial in southwest England, where more than 100 cows are being monitored remotely through their 5G connected collars. The high-tech dairy farm they call home is equipped with automated feeding, milking, and cleaning systems that can adapt to each cow's individual preferences. With the help of 5G, data can be seen by the farmer in real time. All this helps to ensure that the farm is as efficient as possible, so cows produce the highest amount of milk and are kept as happy and healthy as can be. But the UK is not the only country investing in the promise of 5G farming. From perfecting potato production in the Netherlands to a planned 5G connected oyster farm in Japan, a variety of trials are cropping up across the world.
If you're the adventurous type who wants to live somewhere exotic, you don't mind wearing a heavy suit whenever you step outside, and you just love the color red, this could be your future home. These are NASA's top 3 finalists for the 3D Printed Habitat Challenge. It's a $3.15 million competition for people to design a living space that could be built and potentially lived in on another planet, like Mars. These are just renderings. The next phase of the competition challenges teams to 3D print models of their designs. If you don't marsh on the idea of living abroad, we hear Mercury's warm this time of year, and Jupiter's said to be a gas. If you turn your sights elsewhere, you might Neptune your attention to something even farther. Distant destinations offer plutones of space if you're willing to plan it. That's all for CNN 10. I'm Carl Azus.